So there I was, at the kitchen table, feeling like $1 million because Emily, my wife, had just landed this killer job at a top-notch firm. I mean, I was practically beaming with pride. Babe, you've got to take it, I kept telling her. It was a no-brainer. This job was the big leagues. Emily, though, she was a mix of excitement and jitters. First day, she's all dolled up, looking sharp in her business suit. I slap a good luck kiss on her cheek, and off she goes, ready to conquer the world. I remember thinking, this is it. We're moving up in the world. But let me tell you, things started to get a bit off kilter. Emily's always been this bright, bubbly type, you know? But soon, she's coming home with bags under her eyes, glued to her laptop, working way past dinner. I'd be like, hey Em, let's grab a bite. And she'd just wave me off, muttering about deadlines and meetings. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. We ended up having a bit of a spat. Nothing major, but it got heated. What's with these crazy hours, Em? I asked. She shot back, saying it's just the pressure of the new gig. I wanted to believe her, but something in my gut said there was more to it. And then, there's this guy, Mr. Henderson, her boss. Picture this smooth-talking, slick-haired dude, the kind who could sell ice to Eskimos. Emily mentioned him a few times, always in this sort of odd tone. Jack, Mr. Henderson said my report was top-notch. Or, Mr. Henderson thinks I have potential. The way she talked about the guy, you'd think he was some kind of corporate rock star. I remember meeting him once at this company get-together. He had this way of owning the room, you know? But to me, he came off a bit too slick, like a guy who knew just how to play the game. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about him. So, that's where things stood. Emily, up to her eyeballs in work, me feeling like a fifth wheel, and Mr. High and Mighty Henderson hovering in the background. Little did I know, this was just the tip of the iceberg. Life was about to get a whole lot more complicated. All right, let me lay it out for you. Picture this. I'm hanging out with my buddy Mike at our usual spot, the Rusty Anchor, just shooting the breeze over a couple of cold ones. Out of the blue, Mike, with his beer halfway to his mouth, goes, Jack, you think Emily's playing you for a fool? I nearly choked on my drink. What the hell, man? I asked. But the seed was planted. The very next week, Emily comes home with news of her big promotion. I should have been over the moon for her, but Mike's words were like this annoying buzz in my ear. Proud? Sure. But something felt off. She was always a hard worker, but this was meteoric, even for her. Then one evening, things took a nosedive. I'm not proud of it, but I snooped on her phone, and there it was. A message from Mr. Slickhair Henderson, all hearts and winks. My heart sank. I felt this hot, angry knot in my gut. Confrontation time. I waited for her, pacing like a caged animal. The moment she walked in, I lost it. Who the hell is Henderson to you? I demanded. She looked like I'd slapped her. It's not what you think, Jack, she stammered. But her words were tripping over each other, not making a lick of sense. Emily denied everything. But her eyes, man, they were darting all over the place. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But that message, it was like a red flag in my face, and I couldn't unsee it. That night, the house was thick with tension. We were like strangers under the same roof. I kept replaying Mike's words, the promotion, that damn message. Everything felt like a piece of a puzzle I just couldn't solve. So there you have it. My world turning upside down while I'm trying to piece it all together. Trust is a fragile thing, man. Once it starts cracking, good luck trying to glue it back together. So, there I was, deep in the rabbit hole, you know? Couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off with Emily. She was always on her phone, whispering in corners, coming home late. My mind was racing, and I needed answers. That's when I decided to play detective. Yeah, I started tracking her phone, checking logs. I know, man, it sounds crazy, but I had to know. The more I dug, the fishier it got. She'd be all secretive, taking calls in another room, always typing away on her laptop with this worried look. I'd ask, everything okay? Pun? And she'd just jump, like I caught her off guard. Yeah, all good, she'd say. But her eyes, man, they told a different story. Then, there was this one company event. I show up, trying to be the supportive husband, and there's Mr. Henderson, the big boss. The guy reeked of arrogance. You know the type, right? Slick hair, expensive suit, walking around like he owns the place. He had this way of talking down to people, and everyone just took it. Watching him work the room, something in my gut screamed, this guy is bad news. Later, I bumped into one of Emily's colleagues, Nancy. She's a bit tipsy and starts rambling about Henderson being a creep, saying some stuff that made my skin crawl. But before I could press her for more, she clammed up, looking scared. That was enough for me. I needed hard evidence. So, I did something I never thought I'd do, hired a private investigator. Felt like something out of a movie, meeting this pie in a dimly lit parking lot, handing over a photo of Emily. Keep it discreet, I said. Felt like a total cliche, but what choice did I have? Every day, I'd get these updates, photos, and locations. It was like watching a show where you already know the ending's gonna suck. But I had to see it through, you know? Had to know the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. Man, where do I even start? That day, my world came crashing down. The pie, this grizzled guy with a knack for digging up dirt, hands me these photos. And there they were, Emily and Henderson, too close, too personal. My heart sank to my boots. It felt like getting punched in the gut, you know? I was a mess, a storm of rage and heartbreak. All I could think about was confronting Emily, demanding the truth face to face. But just as I was gearing up, mentally rehearsing what I'd say, my phone rings. It's the hospital. Emily's been admitted, some kind of stress-induced collapse. Everything else just faded away. Rushing to the hospital, my mind was racing. Anger, worry, confusion. It was all a blur. I get there, and she's out cold, looking so fragile. Seeing her like that, it was a gut-wrenching moment, man. All the anger just paused. I was standing there, lost, when I noticed a folded piece of paper on the bedside table. It was from Emily, an apology note. She confessed to the affair, said she never meant to hurt me. Every word was like a dagger. I felt this coldness seep into me, a mix of despair and fury. I stood there, numb, staring at her lying there, so vulnerable yet so far away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the photos, her note, our memories. By morning, something in me had snapped. I was done feeling sorry for myself. It was time for payback. Emily had made her choice and now, she had to face the consequences. I started plotting my revenge, cold and calculated. I didn't know how far I'd go or what I'd end up doing. All I knew was that I couldn't let this slide. Not after everything. She had to know what it felt like, to have your world turned upside down, to feel betrayed by the one person you trusted most. So there I was, a regular guy pushed to the edge, about to cross a line I never thought I'd even approach. Revenge, man, it's a dark road. But at that moment, it was the only road I could see. So, there I was, sitting in the dark, laptop open. My finger hovered over the send button, heart pounding like a jackhammer. I had the photos, the ones that would blow Emily's world apart. Revenge was a click away. And man, I clicked. Next thing you know, it's chaos. The photos spread like wildfire through her company. The board was in an uproar, calls were made, and just like that, Emily's career at the firm was toast. She got canned. No second chances, no explanations. The fallout was brutal. I watched it unfold from a distance, like a spectator at a car crash. I should have felt victorious, right? She got what she deserved, didn't she? But the truth is, I felt hollow, man. There was no satisfaction, just this gnawing emptiness. Seeing her name drag through the mud, knowing I was the one who put it there. It was a lot to stomach. Emily became a ghost of herself. She'd just sit there, staring at nothing, barely speaking. The woman I knew, the one full of life and laughter, she was gone. Our home turned into this cold, silent tomb. I'd lie awake at night, listening to her soft sobs from the other room. I wanted to feel angry, to blame her for everything, but all I felt was this deep, aching sadness. Then, out of the blue, I get a call. It's Sarah, some lady who used to work at Emily's firm. Never heard of her before. She's cautious, speaking in hushed tones, like she's afraid of being overheard. There's something you should know about Henderson, she says. My ears perked up. Sarah starts telling me about Henderson's reputation, how he's got this history of, let's say, less than ethical behavior with his employees. It's like every word she says adds another piece to this messed up puzzle. I started to see the bigger picture, and man, it wasn't pretty. So there I was, caught in this whirlpool of guilt and anger. I thought I had it all figured out, but the more Sarah talked, the more I realized how blind I'd been. My quest for revenge, it wasn't just about hurting Emily, it was about proving something to myself. But what was I proving? That I could be just as cruel, just as heartless? That night, I couldn't escape my own thoughts. They swirled around like a storm, relentless, unforgiving. I started to question everything, my actions, my motives, my so called victory. What had I really won? A broken marriage, a broken wife, and a soul full of regret. The chapter closes with me sitting there, in the dark, the weight of my decisions crushing me. I realized revenge is a double edged sword. It cuts deep, but the one holding it isn't immune. It was a lesson learned the hardest way possible. Man, let me tell you, that conversation with Sarah was a game changer. She laid it all out. Henderson's slimy track record with the ladies at work. It was like someone flipped the script on me. Emily, my Emily. She might have been cornered by this creep. The thought of it had my blood boiling. I had to face Henderson, look that snake in the eye. So, I crashed one of his fancy cocktail parties. There he was, all smug and shiny, like he owned the world. I got right up in his face, accusations flying. You should have seen him, cool as ice, just brushing me off like I was some annoying fly. Prove it, he sneered. That's all he said. It was like he knew he was untouchable. But I wasn't about to let this slide. If the law couldn't touch him, I'd find another way. I decided to take matters into my own hands, literally. One night, I sneaked into his office, looking for anything, any shred of evidence. And bingo, I hit the jackpot. Files, man, files with names, dates, all sorts of incriminating stuff. It was like stumbling into a den of vipers. I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't hear the security until it was too late. Next thing I know, I'm cuffed and shoved into a squad car. Breaking and entering, yeah, that was me. I tried explaining to the cops, but who was I kidding? Some average Joe caught red-handed in the big boss's office. Sitting in that cold, hard cell, everything hit me at once. What had I done? I was trying to be the hero, the avenger, but look where it got me. And Emily, God, what was she going through? It was like this giant mess, and I was right at the center, sinking deeper and deeper. So there I was, locked up, my mind racing a mile a minute. I'd crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The funny thing about revenge, man, it's like grabbing a hot coal. You think you're gonna throw it at someone else, but you're the one who gets burned. So there I was, behind bars, feeling like the world's biggest idiot. Jail has this way of making you rethink your entire life. You're there, alone with your thoughts, and man, do they haunt you. I kept turning over Emily's situation in my mind, questioning everything. Was she really guilty, or had I just jumped to conclusions? Then, news of my arrest hit Emily. I could just picture her, torn up between anger and worry. It's a weird feeling, knowing you've caused someone pain but also needing them more than ever. I was stuck in this limbo, half hoping she'd show up, half dreading it. Out of nowhere, Sarah, the ex-employee who tipped me off about Henderson, shows up. She's the one who bails me out. I couldn't believe it. We're sitting in this dingy diner, and she pours out her story, how Henderson preyed on her, how she had to leave the job because of him. Hearing her talk, it was like seeing a whole different side of the story I thought I knew. Next thing, I'm facing a trial, and let me tell you, the media was having a field day. Jealous husband breaks into boss's office, that was the headline. I was painted as some crazed, vengeful guy. It was surreal, watching my life being dissected on the news. Then the moment I'd been dreading and longing for came. Emily visited me. The air was thick with unsaid things as we sat across from each other. Her eyes, they were this mix of hurt, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite place. We talked, really talked, for the first time in what felt like forever. It was raw, man. No holding back. I told her about Sarah, about my doubts, about everything. And Emily, she just listened. this storm of emotions playing across her face. She didn't excuse what she did, didn't try to justify it, but I could see the regret, the pain. That conversation, it was a turning point. For the first time, I saw the complexity of what we were dealing with. It wasn't black and white, good guy versus bad guy. It was messy, painful, and real. I was left sitting there, after she'd gone, feeling this mix of relief and deep, gnawing sadness. We'd broken through some barrier, but what lay on the other side was still so uncertain. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. Man, let me tell you about the whirlwind that was my life at that point. Emily and I, we were like two survivors of the same storm, finally realizing the extent of the damage. It hit us, Henderson, that smooth-talking devil. He'd been playing us like chess pieces, and we fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. So, we made a pact, Emily and I. It was time to turn the tables on Henderson. We were done being victims. We started hunting down leads, talking to anyone who might have been on the receiving end of Henderson's sleazy antics. You wouldn't believe the stories we heard. It was like unearthing a whole underworld of dirty secrets in this glossy corporate world. But here's the kicker, my trial. You'd think with all the dirt we were digging up on Henderson, I'd be in the clear. Right? Wrong. The courtroom was like stepping into an alternate reality. My lawyers laying out the facts, but it's like they're twisting in midair, painting me as this unhinged, jealous husband. Henderson's lawyers were good, real good. They had an answer for everything, turning my quest for truth into some vendetta. The public, man, they ate it up. I was the bad guy, the one who couldn't handle his wife's success. Talk shows, news articles, you name it. Everyone had their 2 cents about me, and none of it was good. It was like watching my reputation get shredded live on national TV. Emily was there, though. She stood by me, despite everything. But every time I looked at her, I saw the toll it was taking. The media circus, the whispers, the judgmental looks, it was wearing her down. We were in this fight together. But at what cost? So, that's where I was, stuck in this nightmare, trying to clear my name, trying to expose Henderson, all while the world seemed hellbent on bringing me down. It was like one of those Greek tragedies, man. You fight against fate, only to realize you're playing right into its hands. Man, let me take you through the eye of the storm, the part where everything just spiraled. Emily, she was in deep water, trying to paddle through it all, standing by me, fighting the good fight. But the world, it wasn't kind. Friends, neighbors, hell, even strangers on the street, they all looked at her like she was some accessory to my supposed crimes. It was like she was being punished just for being my wife. The trial, that was some circus. The gavel comes down, and I get this reduced sentence. Mitigating circumstances, they called it. But let me tell you, it didn't feel like a win. Not even close. I walked out of that courtroom, feeling like I left a part of me behind. And Henderson, that Teflon guy, he just slipped through the cracks. All the dirt, all the testimonies, and he walks away without a scratch. It was like he was made of some kind of untouchable material. You could see it, the smugness, as he left the court. Untouched, unbothered, unbeaten. That whole saga, it tore through my marriage like a hurricane. Emily and I, we were hanging by a thread. Every conversation was a minefield, every silence a thunderstorm. We tried, God knows we did. But some things, once broken, you just can't fix. So, we called it quits. It was the hardest damn thing I ever had to do. Watching her walk away, knowing that I was the one who lit the fuse. Now, Emily, she's out there somewhere, trying to stitch her life back together. Jobless. Shunned by society. All because she got tangled in my vendetta. I hear bits and pieces. She's moving to a new city, starting fresh. I hope she finds peace. I really do. She deserves that much, at least. So here I am, sharing this story, not looking for sympathy or redemption, just laying it out, raw and real. It's a cautionary tale, I guess, about revenge, about pride, about how easy it is to lose sight of what truly matters. If there's a lesson in all this mess, it's that some battles, no matter how righteous they seem, just ain't worth fighting. Walking out of jail, you'd think there'd be some sense of relief, right? But nah, it was nothing like that. I stepped into the daylight feeling like a ghost. The world moved on without me, and there I was, stuck in my own mess of regrets. Every corner of the city reminded me of Emily, of us. It was like living in a photo album, except every picture was tinged with guilt. I'd walk down these streets, see couples laughing, holding hands, and it'd just twist the knife a bit more. I was a free man. But man, freedom never felt so heavy. Then there's Sarah. She's been a rock through all this. She gathered all these victims of Henderson, forming this support group. They'd meet up, share stories, try to heal together. I'd see her sometimes, handing out flyers, determined to make a difference. But Emily, she wouldn't touch it. Pride, shame, I don't know. She just couldn't bring herself to be part of it. I tried, man. I tried to patch things up with Emily. Showed up at her door one evening, heart in my throat. But the moment she opened that door, I knew. It was like looking at a stranger. The hurt in her eyes, it was deeper than any words I could say. She just shook her head, and that was it. No Hollywood ending, no tearful reunion, just a quiet, painful understanding. Then one day, I hear she's leaving town. It hit me like a train. Emily, the woman I loved, the woman I hurt, was going away for good. I wanted to stop her, beg her to stay, to give me another chance. But deep down, I knew she needed this. A fresh start, away from all the memories, the pain, the guy who turned her life upside down. So there I was, standing in the middle of an empty house, the echo of 1,000 could-have beens. I'd look in the mirror and see this guy, a shadow of who I used to be. It's funny, in a tragic kind of way. I set out to right a wrong, to protect the woman I loved. And what did I do? I destroyed everything we had, everything we could have been. I spend my days now trying to make sense of it all. But some things, they don't make sense, do they? You play with fire, thinking you're strong enough to control it. But fire, it has a mind of its own. It burns everything, leaving you with nothing but ashes. So here I am, sharing this story with you. It's not a story of triumph, nor is it a tale of redemption. It's just a story, a raw, real story of love, betrayal, and the consequences of our actions. In the end, I guess it's about understanding that some